Hello, and welcome to this video about adding graphics to your research report. All of the reports that you will do for me are deeply technical in nature and rely heavily on graphics, so it's important that you understand how to appropriately add them to your reports. Let's start with an example. Here I've got a short article that I've started writing about how trusses fail under fire conditions. Now, the start of the article describes the process of sounding the roof, and perhaps the reader is not clear with what sounding is. I've given a description, but to really get the concept across, it's important to have a picture. So we're going to develop a graphic to enter into this report here. Well, you may have graphics that you can scan in, or you may have them on file, but more than likely you're going to have to go out to the internet and look for them. And so here's a graphic that I went out and found just by Googling sounding the roof and then looking under the image tab. If you're not familiar with Google Images, it's your basic Google search. So if I type in sounding the roof, I'm going to get a number of things that come up, but I want to click on the tab that says Images so that it specifically gives me pictures. Now I'm going to look through all of the pictures that are available, and I'm going to find one that I think best illustrates sounding the roof, which I believe is this picture. Then I'm going to say View Image, and unfortunately this is a small graphic, but as you're going to see, we can make it work. And to copy this, I'm going to right-click and say Copy Image. Now, I'm going to need to manipulate this image somewhat for the purposes of my report. So I'm going to go ahead and open up PowerPoint, which is one of the simplest tools you can use to modify images like the photographs you find online. In this case, we are not going to need any type of the title or subtitle, so I'm just simply going to delete these text boxes, and I'm going to paste in the pictures. So again, if I right-click, you can see that I can paste in text. I could keep the source formatting, but the simplest thing is just paste it in as a picture. Once it's in as a picture, all of the normal Microsoft manipulations work. I can stretch it to change its size, I could rotate it, I could crop it, all things that we'll talk about. Now, what do I really want to illustrate this? Well, maybe I want to draw an arrow on here that illustrates that this is a striking motion. So I'm going to come up here, and maybe I'm going to get an arrow, and I'm going to draw it along the handle of the axe, and I'm going to try and use it to indicate that this is a striking motion. But as you can see, you can barely see that arrow. So what I can do is I can right-click on the arrow and say Format Auto Shape, and I want to increase its width. Maybe I'll make its width, I don't know, 2. I want to have an arrow at both ends, and I want it to be some bright color that's going to show up well against the background. So let's see, begin type, we're going to begin it with an arrow. End type, we're going to end it with an arrow, and say close. So you can see that now I've placed this arrow on here to indicate that this axe is moving forward and back. Now, the other thing that I have to do is I have to appropriately cite the source of this picture. This is not my picture, and I cannot claim it as mine because I didn't create it. So below this photograph, I'm going to enter a text box, and I'm going to choose a reasonable font size, like size 10. And I'm going to start out with figure and then whatever number it is. So this is figure 1, the first figure in the report. And I'm going to make a note. And I'm just going to say sounding the roof with an axe. And then I have to make a note about where the photograph came from. So the photograph was taken from Firefighter Job Pub Skill Drill Images. So I'm going to copy the relevant part of the URL. Now, when I paste that in here, I want to paste it in using the format that I've selected for the text box, which is size 10 Calibri font. So when I paste, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to click on the Keep Text Only. And you can see here that it is pasted that in. Okay. Now this is going to be a little bit hairy because this is so long. Let's see if we can break that up a little bit. That's probably about as good as we're going to be able to get that caption to look. Actually, let's underline that. And let's make it blue so that it matches the other text, so that it's clear that it is part of that hyperlink. Now, the last step before I move this into my Word document is I want to group all of this. So I'm going to lasso everything, and again, the way that I lassoed everything is I just pushed down with my left mouse button, pulled a window around the entire thing, and now I'm going to go in here by right-clicking, and I'm going to say Group. So this is now all one object. You'll notice that the handles are all on the outside. I'm going to either right-click or use my Control-C to copy this, and now I'm going to move it into the Word document. Now, you can see that when I pasted this into the Word document, it got all messed up. It pushed my text all out of place, but this is easily repaired. I'm going to right-click on the object, and I'm going to click on Wrap Text Square. And what you're going to see now is that the text is going to move around the image that I've pasted into the document. Now, let's say that I wasn't happy with the caption, or I wanted to further modify this photograph. I can still go in there and alter it, but first I have to ungroup the existing picture. So let's see. I would actually have to go back into PowerPoint and ungroup it here and make modifications. For instance, if I wanted to move it, now it became Figure 2 or something like that. I can make those modifications here and then repaste it back into the document. Now let's say that you didn't just want a photograph, maybe you wanted to generate a drawing. Well, PowerPoint's good for that as well. Maybe we want to generate a drawing of a truss and talk about the gusset plates and tension being in the truss. So in PowerPoint, the drawing tools are up here, and they're pretty basic, but if you use them well enough, you can actually generate quite a few things. So let's start out and let's say that we're going to make a diagram of a bottom chord truss gusset plate tensile failure. So I'm going to, this is going to be the bottom chord of the truss. I don't care for the colors. I want it to be black and white. So the fill color I'm going to make white. The line color I'm going to make black. And the line style I'm going to make much thinner, maybe about a 1-point line. Okay, and now I need to generate some additional components for the angles, and here's probably the easiest way to do it. I'm going to copy this and paste it, and I'm going to rotate it to some angle that makes a good approximation of a roof angle. Now, I've moved this up. I have to generate the corresponding top chord for the other side. Here's the easiest way to do it. I'm going to copy this thing and paste it, and then I'm going to right-click on it, and I am going to, actually I'm going to go to the drawing tools, and I'm going to flip horizontal. So you can see that now I've just flipped it around so it's the other side of the truss. Now, I'll still need to modify the lengths of both of these. And probably the easiest way is just one at a time to drag them to where you think they should be. And there you can see you're starting to get a good picture of what this truss should look like. Now, our area of interest is going to be the gusset plate at the base. So let's draw a vertical post. So again, I'll just copy the original post that I drew, and I'm going to rotate it. This time I'm going to use the free rotate tool, but I'm going to hold down the shift key, which which causes it to rotate in 15-degree increments. And I want this to be a little bit thinner because it's just a brace, it's not a cord. So I'm going to thin it down a little bit, and I want to try and get it maybe wide enough to kind of hide the overlap of those pieces. Now what I'm doing here is I'm using the arrow keys to steer this around in small little steps. Now, my area of interest here is the gusset plate, and so I could draw that in simply as a rectangle. And again, the way to do that is to go to Insert Shapes, and I'm just going to draw my gusset plate right here. Now, there might be a number of things that we're interested in adding in terms of details to this. For instance, we maybe want to dimension this truss. So we could create extension lines. And again, it's going to default to this silly blue color, but that's easily changed. We're just going to go to Format, Shape, Line Color, and change it to black. And for instance, maybe I want to dimension the distance from the edge to the center of this truss. I can do that simply with these very basic tools that they give you under the Enter Shapes or Insert Shapes menu. And again, if I hold the Shift key down, it's going to lock the orientation of that line, horizontal, vertical, or 15-degree increments thereof. If you've taken like a high school drafting or engineering drawing class, probably much of this is familiar to you, and this will be real straightforward. If you haven't, it's going to take a little bit of experimentation and playing around with the program, but you can do a number excuse me, of things with this. I need to add a dimension here, so maybe I want to add the dimension that this is 12 feet. And that number is a little large. Let's make our text a little bit smaller. So we'll make that like size 16 font. Now, I want to interrupt this dimension line with this number. And if the background of the number were set to white, I could just simply set it over the top and it would have that effect. You can see right now the background's set to transparent. So I'm going to go again, right click, and I'm going to go into Fill, and I'm going to say Solid Fill. And yes, I want white solid fill. And there it's created the interruption in my dimension line. Dimensioning and technical drawing, engineering drawing can get fairly complex. We're not going to get into all of the details of appropriate use of dimensions and how these things should be labeled. In this course, if you know that, I would ask you to use it. If you've had a course in engineering drawing, please make your drawings appropriate. Once again, I would have the option of, I could lasso all of this stuff, I could group it, and I could import it into Microsoft Office Word. Here's another alternative. If I have something in PowerPoint, I can save it as a photograph. So I'm going to call this truss, and instead of saving it as a PowerPoint, I'm going to save it here as a JPEG, which is kind of the most universal type of photograph file, graphics file for computers. So I'll save it as truss under building construction as a JPEG. Now, why would I do that? It's going to ask me current slide only or every slide. Well, I only have one slide. Doesn't much matter, but I'll say current slide only. Here's where that could be an advantage. Rather than copying and pasting things in, there's an alternative way to get this graphic into Word, which is to insert as a picture from a file. So if I go back out to building construction, here's my photograph that I just generated in Microsoft PowerPoint.